This video highlights the amazing 1971 NFL season. The first three draft picks were quarterbacks who'd all have long, successful careers. The Boston Patriots of 1970 had the worst record in the league and drafted first. They changed their name to the New England Patriots and also changed their home field for the start of the 1971 season. Harvard Stadium only had a little more than 37,000 fans, but their new digs held a little more than 61,000. On opening day, September 19th, the visiting Oakland Raiders were a 14.5-point favorite, but rookie quarterback Jim Plunkett threw 2 touchdown passes on only 6 completions to help defeat the mighty Raiders, who lost the AFC Championship game to the eventual Super Bowl champion Baltimore Colts the season prior. Patriots drafted the 6'3", 210-pound Plunkett out of Stanford University. He won the 1970 Heisman Trophy by more than 800 points over second-place finisher Joe Theismann. In 1970, the Patriots threw for the least amount of yards in the NFL and the least number of passing touchdowns, 7. The team pinned their hopes on Plunkett for a big turnaround, and he delivered. He threw 19 touchdown passes, 12 more than the 1970 Patriots, and added 4 more notches in 1971's win column from the year before. Even though he didn't win the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, he did finish in second place. On this Week 2 play, Plunkett's ex-Stanford teammate Randy Vitaha pried the football away from 2-time first-team All-Pro cornerback Lem Barney of the Lions. In 14 starts, he was sacked 36 times, which was the second most in the NFL. On this play, he eyed his intended receiver the entire play, a typical rookie error, and it cost him. Linebacker Mike Lucci returned this pick 26 yards for 6 points in a 34-7 Lions win. The New Orleans Saints pegged quarterback Archie Manning as their savior. At the University of Mississippi, Archie Manning was named in jest as Archie who? By public address announcers, as Manning was one of the most publicized players in college football. He finished third in the 1970 Heisman Trophy voting and was drafted 4 different times by Major League Baseball teams. He played shortstop for Ole Miss. In a game against the University of Houston as a senior football player, Manning broke his left forearm. How would his rookie NFL season play out? Like Clubber Lang so famously stated in the movie Rocky III when asked for his prediction to the upcoming bout with Rocky, pain. Manning was thrown around like a rag doll. He was mauled repeatedly and was sacked an NFL-leading 40 times for an NFL-leading 332 yards lost. In 10 games started, Manning only had 3 games in which he completed more than 10 passes. He only had 3 games of more than 150 passing yards. Given these dismal statistics, it's not surprising that he only threw 6 touchdown passes with 9 interceptions. His 97 passing yard average per game played is indicative of the amount of defensive pressure thrust upon him on a regular basis. So he didn't have much time to throw deep. Santa Clara's quarterback Dan Pastorini was drafted 3rd overall in 1971, and as a bonus, the Oilers also got a punter out of this pick. He and Jim Plunkett seemingly had a lot of fun at the college All-Star Game festivities. The Oilers were playing their 4th season in the 8th wonder of the world, the Astrodome. In 1971, and like Manning, who also had a powerful throwing arm, he ended up running for his life. The Oilers devised roll-off plays in order to buy more time in which to throw, but he still ended up with a few pounding headaches due to the rock-hard playing surface of the Houston Astrodome. However, when he did have time to throw, he could really wing it. In 8 starts, he had 4 games of more than 200 passing yards. He only threw 7 touchdown passes, and 21 passes ended up in the hands of the opposition. Consequently, his passer rating was the second lowest of all NFL qualifiers. What was Pastorini's punting prowess? His 40.6 average was the 13th best out of the 26 teams. So who was the offensive rookie of the year? It was the Packers running back John Brockington, who made first-team All-Pro when he ran for 1,105 yards. Somewhat coincidentally, Brockington amassed scrimmage yards in the same amount as a senior at Ohio State University when he rushed for 15 touchdowns in 9 games. Brockington was 225 pounds, yet he was very fast for a running back. Brockington's counterpart on defense was Rams outside linebacker Isaiah Robertson. He was big at 6'4" and 235 pounds. He was a little bit braggadocious, said Hall of Fame guard Tom Mack. He showed up and announced that he was the Black Dick Butkus and he was here to save us. That's the way Butch was. Former Rams safety Nolan Cromwell said, "He was as fast and as quick as a lot of defensive backs. He was that gifted as an athlete." The Chargers' John Hadl was the NFL's leading passer in 1971 in terms of passing yards and passing touchdowns, with 3,075 and 21 respectively. Head coach Sid Gilman was a mastermind as a passing strategist. In 1970, when he was the team's general manager, the Chargers had the 8th most passing yards, and even though he resigned as their head coach after 10 games in 1971, his influence upon Hadl's success was sizable. What makes Hadel's 1971 season so incredible is that he didn't have seven-time All-Pro wide receiver Lance Allworth to throw to for the first time in his career. Both players were rookies in 1962. Allworth was traded prior to the start of the 1971 season to the Cowboys for tight end Pettis Norman, tackle Tony Liscio, and defensive tackle Ron East. Prior to becoming a quarterback at the University of Kansas, Hadel was a running back as a sophomore there. He didn't run often as a pro, but when he did, he could be effective. The NFL's leading rusher was the Broncos' Floyd Little. His 1,133 rushing yards and 284 rushing attempts led the league. In 1970, his 209 carries were the fifth most. The number of these rushing attempts is impressive for a running back who wasn't physically large at only 5'10" and 195 pounds. He displayed a lot of grit and determination over 9 professional seasons. At his retirement, he had the 7th most rushing yards and rushing attempts all time. Otis Taylor was the NFL's leading pass reception yardage leader with 1,110 yards, and he was the only receiver to crack the 1,000-yard mark. He had 10.2% more yards than the number 2 receiver, who was the Dolphins' Paul Warfield. While that 10.2% variance is a lot, it's nothing compared to the 52.8% in 1942 when Don Hudson had 1,211 receiving yards and Ray McClain of the Bears finished with 571 yards. McClain was a halfback who had 19 catches for 8 touchdowns and an almost unfathomable 30.1 yards per catch. The Chiefs head coach Hank Stram was an ingenious innovator. He concocted the moving pocket and triple stack defense and instituted as many ways as he dreamt up to get the football into the hands of star wide receiver Otis Taylor, who had prototypical size at 6'3" and 215 pounds. The NFL's most valuable player played his home games in Minnesota at Metropolitan Stadium. What's unique about this player is that he played defense, and did so at such a high level that he made the players around him better than what they would have been without him. This player accomplished what even the great Dick Butkus never did. Defensive tackle Alan Page won the NFL MVP award. He was the main cog in the Vikings defense that allowed only 9.9 yards per game, the second fewest total yards, and only 2 rushing touchdowns all regular season. Page was unbelievably quick at the snap of the ball. He had 9 sacks, which is a lot for a defensive tackle back then, and remember, it's not always about sack totals, but rather about how frequently a defensive lineman can put the heat on a quarterback and cause him to throw an errant pass. And Page did a lot of that in 1971. Head coach Bud Grant may have not showed it, but he was giddy inside, knowing he had a defensive tackle who was one of the greatest of all time. Cowboys running back Dwayne Thomas finished second in the 1970 Offensive Rookie of the Year voting. In July 1971, he wanted his $20,000 salary for the 1971 season to be renegotiated to pay him $80,000. When the Cowboys balked, Thomas went into seclusion in Los Angeles. The team retaliated by trading him to the Patriots in a package that involved talented running back Carl Garrett. Patriots head coach John Mazur exploded at Thomas for a variety of transgressions, and in the end, the trade was rescinded. Back with the Cowboys, Thomas's 11 rushing touchdowns led the NFL, as did his 13 total touchdowns. In Washington, D.C., there were a whole lot of new faces, but mainly from the same place. Defensive tackle Dyran Talbert, guard John Wilbur, and linebackers Myron Patios, Jack Pardee, and Maxie Baughan, along with running back Jeff Jordan, all came from Los Angeles in one trade. Running back Tommy Mason also came from Los Angeles in a separate trade. Strong safety Richie Pettibone also was shipped from LA to Washington in 1971. At age 33, he had 5 interceptions and just missed scoring a touchdown on this play. George Allen's defensive philosophy was one of high intensity. He stocked his roster with aged veterans who still played with a youthful exuberance. Number 32, Jack Pardee, was age 35, and he was like having a coach on the field to play. In fact, he became the Bears' head coach in 1975 at the young age of 39. Defensive end Ron McDowell was traded from Buffalo in 1971, and he played at age 39 until he finally hung up his cleats. The most important trade, I think, was quarterback Billy Kilmer coming to Washington from New Orleans in yet another 1971 trade. Battlin' Billy didn't wear a chin strap, and he was double tough. Another great trade was landing Colts wide receiver Roy Jefferson on July 31st, 1971. Jefferson had back-to-back 1,000 receiving yard seasons for the Steelers in 1968 and 1969. A newer rule for the 1971 season was that defenses could run the ball back on missed field goal attempts instead of taking an automatic touchback and putting the ball in play at the 20-yard line. Speedy Duncan took advantage of this rule, and he was traded from the Chargers in 1971 as well. The Redskins hadn't played in the playoffs since 1945, but George Allen took them there again in only his first season. Meanwhile, in Titletown, USA, Green Bay, Wisconsin at Lambeau Field, the Packers had their own new head coach, Dan Devine. From 1955 through 1970, he was the head coach at Arizona State and Missouri. In Week 1, Doug Hart intercepted Fran Tarkenton. Former Packer Bob Hyland crashed into Devine and broke his leg. The Packers scored 16 unanswered fourth-quarter points in a wild game in which the Giants won 42-40. The Packers lost 2 more games than they did in 1970, and from 1971 through 1974, Devine's coaching record was 25 wins, 27 losses, and 4 ties. Clearly, he did not bring the Pack back to prominence. Tommy Prothro was a first-year head coach with the Rams, and like Dan Devine, he coached in the college ranks from 1955 through 1972, only with Oregon State and UCLA. The 1971 Rams finished with 8 wins, 5 losses, and 1 tie, and he was accepted and admired by the players. When Prothro turned 51 years old in the second week of training camp, they presented him with a carton of cigarettes and a case of Coke at breakfast. He was dismissed by the team on January 24, 1973, however, after the 1972 Rams finished with a 6-win, 7-loss, and 1 tie mark. 6 weeks after his departure, Prothero filed a $1.9 million lawsuit against the Rams that alleged his contract was breached for dismissal without cause. On May 23, 1973, the two sides settled out of court, and Prothero received $225,000 to cover the final 3 years of his contract. Life was good.